Role-playing games have hooked us gamers with fantastical worlds and a jaw-dropping sense of scale for decades now, and the genre has considerably evolved within that time period. What was once a market solely dominated by specific game developers has morphed into a global business, and this has led to new types of experiences. And as time has passed, we find ourselves returning to certain RPGs that just stand out from the rest of the pack for some reason or another. And to that end, here are the best RPGs of all time. Before starting with the list, it's important to acknowledge that this list is our opinion. With that in mind, let's begin. Fable 2. The original Fable was a great concept that suffered a bit when it came to execution, but Fable 2 made some substantial changes to the experience to great effect. Story decisions carry more weight, side quests are more interesting than before, and plenty of customization options are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the many improvements that it brings over the original. And of course, all that adds up to make Fable 2 arguably the best in the series. Pokemon Legends Arceus. While it's only been some months since Pokemon Legends Arceus released, it has already managed to create a long-lasting impact on those who played it. This RPG refines the concept and ideas of prior games to an immaculate sheen, and what we get is a game that knows what it does best and owns in on those aspects for a wondrous ride through and through. Horizon Forbidden West. Guerrilla Games created an excellent foundation in the form of Horizon Zero Dawn, but in reality, it was just a taste of what's to come in Horizon Forbidden West. The sequel corrects almost every criticism with the original, and what we have is a gameplay loop that's constantly fun and engaging, thanks to the many new tools and abilities under Aloy's belt. Apart from a meaty campaign, there are also plenty of side activities that players can check out, and it's all quality stuff. The visuals are also jaw-dropping, both on a macro and micro level, which makes for a gorgeous world that's so enticing to explore. Disco Elysium Director's Cut. Developer ZAUM knocked it out of the park with Disco Elysium, an RPG that manages to remain engaging without it featuring any combat whatsoever. And that achievement can majorly be attributed to how the writing and characters are some of the best in recent memory, and how the game weaves a net of well-designed mechanics around the simple act of exchanging dialogues and choosing options from a tree. Of course, the art direction that's inspired by gorgeous oil pastel paintings also helps in Disco Elysium's case. The director's cut adds more to the experience and is by all means the definitive way to play the game. Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is a massive space opera that takes you through a thrill ride as Shepard and gang embark on a quest to fight the Collectors. This massive journey is punctuated by meaningful character interactions that lead to choices which dictate the ending, and the action-packed combat manages to remain interesting throughout the experience. Add to that personalities like the Elusive Man and Mordin Solus, among others, and Mass Effect 2 becomes an experience that shouldn't be missed out on. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII is still remembered as one of the best RPGs of all time, so when the developer announced that it would be remaking this classic from the ground up, fans rejoiced, but there was an element of skepticism along with it. But those suspicions were washed away with the release of the remake's Part 1, which successfully translate the experience to a modern gaming landscape. The visuals are gorgeous, the combat is more interesting than before, and the characters and story hit the same notes, all while adding new content to the script. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver feels like a celebration of this evergreen series, since it manages to bring one of the best games in the franchise to a modern audience. Heart Gold and Soul Silver retains the core feel of the originals, while adding some modern blemishes to the experience, which makes it one of the best Pokemon games of all time. Transistor. For all of its accomplishments, however, it's still Transistor's story of a mute singer and her talking sword, a story about power and loss and love and shadow organizations and master plans gone horribly awry. Transistor never offers easy answers, and it expects you to come to the conclusions yourself. You may get lost along the way, but it's the good kind of lost, and you'll think about it even when you've put it down for the night. It's that kind of game. The kind of game that sticks with you long after the credits roll. The kind that, like Red, understands the power of a single word. Fallout 4. Set against the backdrop of the Commonwealth, Fallout 4 is, at its heart, a story about finding your lost son in a post-apocalyptic environment. But what surrounds that main story is a buffet of interesting quests and secrets throughout the gargantuan open world that will keep you hooked for hours on end. Hop on a power armor to wreak havoc upon mutants, or help out a faction of your choice, or continue your search for the Institute. Fallout 4 remains a quality time either way. Demon's Souls Remake. Demon's Souls is generally considered to be the game that started it all when it comes to FromSoft's signature RPGs, and even after all these years, it holds up extremely well. Bluepoint Games released a full-fledged remake of this classic recently, and while some aspects like visuals have changed, many of its core elements like the combat and the boss fights have stood the test of time and have remained mostly unchanged for the remake. It's a pretty unique experience, and one worth experiencing for fans of Souls-likes. Monster Hunter World. At its core, Monster Hunter World is a game that's about hunting different kinds of monsters and using newly acquired gear and knowledge to take on higher challenges against harder foes. So it's great that the game understands this, and the gameplay loop is crafted around these specific goals, which yields some great results. Enemies have a lot of variety amongst their movesets, and the differences between life and death during encounters is as much about your knowledge of your opponent's weaknesses as it is about the numerical stats on your weapons and armor. Undertale. Undertale describes itself as an RPG where you don't have to kill anyone. And while that gimmick could have easily ended up being its downfall, Undertale ends up being a game unlike any other. The turn-based combat features plenty of variety with different kinds of bullet hell minigames, and your actions drastically impact the story's conclusion depending on who you spare and who you don't. Undertale is a game that only lasts for about 6 hours, but it manages to say so much more than some games that last 60. Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic is almost 20 years old at this point, but it remains one of the most highly revered RPGs of all time, and that's for good reason. Everything from the game's world to the characters and the writing is well realized and pays due homage to the source material. It's no surprise that a full-fledged remake is in the works, and hopefully it manages to be a worthy uplift to the original. The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. CD Projekt Red made a big leap with The Witcher 3, and it was a leap well worth the risk. The open world of the continent is filled to the brim with interesting content, ranging from monster hunts to intricate questlines to high-stakes Gwent battles, among many other things. But what makes the content so special is how it remains to consistently qualify stuff regardless of it being part of the main quest or side activities. Furthermore, the choices are actually meaningful, and each of them feed into one of the many endings that you may unlock. It's a game that can take hundreds of hours to complete, and even if you take on that massive endeavor, there's still a possibility that you may find something new around the next corner. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim is a worthy sequel to the games that came before, and that statement alone says a lot about the quality of the experience. Your journey starts through the province of Skyrim that takes you through snowscape peaks, dark caves, murky forests, and regardless of where you go, you'll always find something worthwhile to do that will consistently make you stronger and stronger. Add to that Bethesda's excellent writing chops, a thunderous soundtrack, and top-notch world building. And it isn't hard to understand why Skyrim continues to sell even after a decade. Elden Ring. From Software is one of the most influential developers of recent memory, and when we say that Elden Ring is the culmination of everything From Software has been working towards for the last decade, that statement really means a lot. Set against the backdrop of The Lands Between, Elden Ring is a massive experience that plays on your desire for exploring uncharted vistas with new and worthwhile surprises around every corner. The combat is vicious and flexible, and the wealth of tools at your disposal allows you to come up with all kinds of wacky strategies to best some of the toughest bosses of the series. It's a one-of-a-kind game, and it will surely have a lot of impact on games and RPGs going forward. Jade Empire. Jade Empire might seem like a standard RPG at first, but it's anything but. As you sink your teeth into this one hell of a game, you realize how it presents a story that's not just about saving the world from an evil force, thanks to loads of plenty of lore and the many flawed characters that you meet throughout your journey. Getting through Jade Empire might be a massive undertaking, but the final payout is well worth the time invested. Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.